Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Sorry, running a little bit late today. So we'll get started here right away, just as I make sure everything is broadcasting properly. The training will last approximately an hour and a half. We do record the trainings, so you can come back and view them if you can't stay for the entire time. This also allows you to share the link with other staff members who need to be system admins. Feel free to make use of YouTube's chat feature to ask questions about a feature as I go over it. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Here you see our Dash login page. This is at dash.virtualpbx.com. We need 3 pieces of information for you to get logged in. The first up is your username. This is your email address, and it should be in all lowercase letters. Your password is case sensitive, and that should have been emailed to you. And the account name, typically your organization name, could be your own name if you just signed up under your own name. And then you click on the sign-in bar at the bottom here. Now, if that information isn't working or you don't remember your password, just above the sign-in bar to the right is the Forgot Your Info link. You can click on that. It flips it over. Still needs your email address, right? Still in lowercase letters. Then we need one of these 2 pieces of information below. So we need either the account name or a phone number that's on the account, right? And that's one of your customer-facing phone numbers versus like your cell phone number as a device. And then you would click on the Reset Password button down at the bottom. Now, what this does is this sends you an email. In the body of the email, there's a link that lets you log in temporarily. And that link only lets you get to your user account page to change your password, right? If you navigate away from that page, it logs you out. Once you're done changing your password, it also logs you back out, takes you back to this page. So you put in that new password, and you have the option here to click on Remember Me, and then you can click Sign In. I'm signing into a test account that I log into on a regular basis. So when I log in now, I get taken to my dashboard page. If it's your first time logging in, you'll be taken to your user account page, which you can always get back to at any time. So from the dashboard, if I want to get back to my user account page, I look up towards the top center, and just to the right of that, I see my name. So I click on that. It's a big pop-up. So now I got my user account information. So if I wanted to, I could change my password right here. All right, you can also change things like your time zone and language, as well as your time and date display. Now, as a system admin over here on the left, I can also click on the account level settings. All right, so I can update the technical contact or even change the time zone language for the entire account. Admins can also manage the add-ons. This is a new feature on Dash accounts. This allows you to add additional features to your account. Some of these features may increase your bill. There'll be a pop-up that comes up to let you know how much that's going to be. If you're interested in multiple add-ons, you're probably going to want to talk to our account services team first, as it might be more cost-effective to just change plans versus adding a bunch of add-ons. Down here on the left under billing, right, you got the billing portal. And this link actually opens up a new tab and takes you to the billing portal itself. That's where you would log in to see previous invoices or update your credit card. And then the cancel account, any admin can cancel your account. When you follow the on-screen steps here, the account will be closed, basically it will stay open until your next billing date, right? If you need to cancel an account immediately, you're gonna wanna email our billing team, right? That's billing@virtualpbx.com, and then they can handle that for you. Once you're done with everything under the user account page, click on the close box towards the top right, and now you're here on the dashboard. So up at the top, again, your name, you can always click on it to get back to that user account page. Most people, to the right of your name, you'll have this DND toggle, right? Stands for Do Not Disturb. Right now, mine is enabled, meaning I'm not accepting calls, right? So if someone dials, like if I have a phone number directly on my user, someone dials it right now, they're going straight to voicemail, right? My devices aren't gonna ring, right? If I click on this toggle, right, that turns it off. And so now I would be accepting calls. All right. Now, if you get assigned to, or if you're going to make use of the call center, right, ACD queues, and you assign yourself to the queues, you'll no longer have the D&D toggle, as the D&D toggle and the queues don't work well together. So something to be aware of there. You have this little phone icon here. This opens up a new tab and takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. If you have a web phone device on your user, you can log into this page using your Dash login information. This allows you to use your Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls. The mobile versions of those browsers are not supported. Little chat bubble here. Icon, this opens up a new tab. It takes you to virtualtext.app. Website has its own login information, and this is what you would use if you have virtual text enabled on your user to text with your customers. Oops, the little question mark icon. This opens up a chat window at the bottom right of your browser, so you can speak to one of our support people, so they can help you with a particular feature. The 3 horizontal line icon, that's the menu icon. This takes you to other Dash features. The majority of our training will be here on the dashboard, but we'll touch on these other subjects. Arrow to the right icon, just to log out. All right, here in the center, I've got total users. I have 5 people, right? That means I have 5 people on my account who make and receive calls. I'm being billed for these users, right? So if I added a 6th person, my bill would go up. Then I have total devices, total of 10 devices, and a breakdown. So first up is Softphone. This is a software application that uses your internet connection to make and receive calls, right? So it counts as a VoIP phone. The 10 would include any VirtualPBX softphone apps that my staff is using, as well as any third-party apps or credentials that I'm making use of. Right, web phone, that Chrome or Firefox device, excuse me. Right, technically it's a kind of soft phone, but it was developed later, so that's why it has a separate heading. Then we got cell phone. You can add a cell phone or landline number as a contact number on your account. So this means we can send a call directly to your cell phone number. Something to keep in mind, or the big thing to keep in mind, is once we send a call to that cell phone number, that's an endpoint, right? You're not going to be able to transfer that call to another staff member on your account. And then down here, I have SIP phone. This is a physical VoIP phone, right? So it sits on someone's desk, connect via typically via an Ethernet cable to get to your router, then out to the internet. But beyond that, it acts like a phone, right? You pick up the handset, dial a phone number, click on call, and you're speaking to somebody. If you're shopping for VoIP phones, you want to make sure that it says it's SIP compliant or SIP compatible. There are other types of protocols that VoIP phones use, so you want to make sure you get the right kind. Unregistered devices, I have one. That means I have disabled one of my devices here on my dashboard. And so basically I'm temporarily not using it for whatever reasons. I have 15 or 16 total phone numbers. Right, your account includes some number of phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price, like typically at least your main number, right? Some of the plans include a local number per user. So I am likely paying an overage on a per number per month basis for these extra numbers. Then I have a breakdown. First is assigned numbers and spare numbers, right? Assigned numbers are numbers that's currently in use, right? So someone can dial an assigned number and expect to speak to someone or leave a voicemail, join a conference, or be sending a fax. A spare number counts towards your allotment of phone numbers, just means you're not using it right now. Whether that's because you're about to expand to a new geographic location, right? So as a new area code for a storefront. So you added the number ahead of time so you can get your marketing materials ready, but you don't want it in use right away because there's no one physically there to answer the call anyway. Right, now here I've got USDID and US toll free. Right, US toll free is actually US Canada toll free, right? 800 number 888 all the way down to 833. USDID just means a US local number. So you have a number, say in Manhattan Beach, California, USDID, just as if you had one in Delray Beach, Florida. You can't have international numbers on your account. If you're so inclined, you're going to want to email our porting team, and that's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. They're going to need this to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a phone number in. They'll let you know if that is possible, and then if there's any additional requirements, right? Those requirements would come from the country in question. And generally speaking, we're not going to be able to choose the number. We just get assigned a number. Conference bridges, I have 3. That means I've enabled 3 of my users to host or moderate a conference, which is basically a user feature. Now, towards the top right, I have my main number box. I have the 4 numbers there. So these numbers all behave the same way, right? They're all going to the same location on my system. And in this case, they're all going to play the same ingredient. Down below that, I have the conference number. You can have multiple conference room numbers if you want, but they're all going to the same set of conference rooms. And this is the phone number everyone dials to reach the conference, and this includes your staff. Then next up, we have the main fax box number. This is your inbound fax number if you're so inclined to have one. When you can have one main fax box number. And once you do have one, you can also edit that fax box to enable outbound faxing if you're so inclined, as well as add an email address to be notified when an inbound fax comes in. Then we've got the company directories. There's 2 download links here. The first one is CSV, right? Kappa for if you're good with spreadsheet files, right? It's just going to be a spreadsheet file. It's going to have your staff members' names, their email addresses, their extension numbers, their devices. Right? So if you need to have a copy of what everyone's extension is on to print out, for example, that's what you would use. The soft phone download link is for you specifically with the VirtualPBX soft phone app on either a Mac or Windows PC. Right? So if you're using our app on your computer, you can download this file and then upload it to your VirtualPBX soft phone app, and it will show, right? You have a contact list now of all your staff members. They'll show up on your VirtualPBX soft phone, and you can see the status of their VirtualPBX staff phone, right? Whether they're on a call or not. Now, if your staff members are using multiple devices, you're not going to be able to see the status of those other devices, right? But you can see if they're using the VirtualPBX soft phone. VirtualPBX Store, right? This opens up a new tab, takes you to store.virtualpbx.com, where you can order things like, excuse me. Then we have the account realm. Every account has its own account realm. This is used in a couple things. The first is it is one of the 3 pieces of information you would need for a third-party soft phone in order to program or provision that particular application. The other thing it's used for is for outbound faxing. Once you've set up your fax box to allow for outbound faxing, right, you would create an email like you normally do. In the to field, you put the plus sign, the number 1, the area code and phone number you're faxing to, the little @ symbol, and then you put in your account realm. Then you just need to attach a PDF or TIFF file. Right? So the system looks at the to field, it looks at the from field, it looks at the attachment. It does not look at the subject line, it does not look at the body of the email. Right? So anything you type in those 2 areas aren't getting transmitted as part of your fax. You're going to only be able to send one attachment per email. So you want to make sure you don't have any signature files attached as well, because that can cause an error. All right. Now, if we go back towards the top here, I have a VPBX New Hire Sandbox, and to the right of that, I have the caller ID. This pull down allows you to select any of your main numbers, right? And whatever number you select, that becomes your default number. So for instance, your VoIP phones would use that number as their outbound caller ID. And then you would click on Save Changes. Music on hold. You can upload your own media files. All right. Dash will play back .wav, right? .wav or .mp3 files up to 1 megabyte in size. A 1 megabyte MP3 is roughly 5 minutes. You'll likely want to record in mono, not in stereo, as that will give you a longer duration file. But once you click upload, click on browse to find the file on your device, click the up arrow icon, and then click on save changes, and it will upload it. And this becomes the default hold music for all your staff members. Now, just so you know, right, when this file plays is after the call has come into your system, reach one of your staff members' phones, right? So your staff members picked up their VoIP phone, then they press hold on their VoIP phone. That's when this file plays. Right? So it's after it's reached your staff members. Right? Hours is actually part of main number. We don't want to get into main number until we have destination set up on the account. So I'm going to go over on the left-hand side here and select users, right? Little person with the desk icon here, and tell you how to add users. So on the users page, you see all the users on your account. People with the little blue suit icon, right? These are your system admins, right? They can make all the changes we've been talking about. Dante, you see here, just a little gray person icon. He's a standard user. He has very limited access, right? So he can log in to dash.virtualpbx.com, but he's only gonna be able to see his own things, right? So he can see his own voicemails. He can set up call forwarding for himself. And that's basically about it, right? He's got very limited access. Up here at the top is where you would click on to add user, right? So add another person. First name, last name, right? The system wants some sort of text. The email address used for login needs to be unique for each user, right? So no reusing email addresses. This is how the system communicates with your staff, right? So like your voicemail notifications, password resets, right? They would go to this email address by default. All right. Password, create a password for the user. Main extension number, enter the extension number you want this person to have. Now the system will default you to extension 1000. So it'll suggest something in this next series for 1000, but you can enter anything you want in this box. Then by default, the system will create a voicemail box for this user automatically for you. So what that means is, so you create the user, right? The voicemail box is created. You add a VoIP phone to that user. That VoIP phone gets registered. They can pick it up, dial *98. That's going to log them into this voicemail box you just created for them. The system will then walk them through creating a voicemail box PIN number, as well as creating their voicemail box greeting, right? And they can even get to the personal settings and record their name, which is what the system would use for the Smart PBX directory or the user directory. Speaking of, here's the option to include the user in the user directory. You just put a check mark to enable it, or you can leave it alone if you don't want it. You can always change your mind later. Here's the option to send email or send the emails to an alternate email address, right? So if you want those voicemail notifications to go to an email address other than the one that they use for login, click on the box here and then enter that different email address here. Again, you can change that later. And then this one I think is pretty important, right? Send credentials to the user. So what that means is once I click on create user, this person gets an email welcoming them to the Dash account, as well as gives them their login information. All right. Same would happen with create user and add another, except that in that case, the box would refresh so I can enter in information for a second person. All right, once a user is added, you can click on their name. Right, so if you need to, you can change their name. right? So that's like if you want to, you could do so if you want to reuse an extension number. I usually just recommend deleting it and then recreating it with a new person's information, just so you don't have any oddness happen. Here is where you would change their credentials, right? You can click on it so you can change their email, right? Reset their password. You also have the option here. If you click on the link here, that the system will send them the password reset email. So that way they can just get logged in on their own. You can change their voicemail box PIN number here. Just click on the link, enter the 4 digits, click on Save Changes. Here's your option to send emails to an alternate address. Right, here's the option to include in the user directory or not. This pull down, next to the little person icon here, this allows you to change a person into an admin or an admin down to a user. The little clock icon, this is for the time zone for the user, right? So that way their voicemail timestamps are correct. Well, flag icon, this allows you to change the display language for these web pages for this user. You can change it to, or you can select between English, French, German, or Russian. The ringing timeout, this is how much time we offer calls to devices on the user. It defaults to 20 seconds, which is plenty of time for a landline or a VoIP phone. If the person's going to be using a cell phone, you're probably going to want to increase that to 30 seconds like it is for here. And that's just because it takes more time to route a call to a cell phone than it does to, say, a landline, right? Because the cell phone company has to find you first. All right, the extension box, you can choose to add an additional extension number to a user if you want to. Click here, enter the new extension number, and then save changes. If we look up here, users can have their own phone numbers, right? So this is a phone number that goes only to this user. The main thing to keep in mind about adding a phone number to a user is that this phone number is available 24/7, right? It does not have hours of operation. It does not have holidays. So if you end up adding like their personal cell phone as a device on the user, right, they could get a call at any time of the day or night. But you have two options down here. You can add from spare or buy new, right? So add from spare is making use of a number you're not currently using, whether you took it out of a service already from someone else, or you just, hadn't assigned it at all. You would click on add from spare. This is going to show you your available spare numbers. And you could select one or more and then click on add spare numbers, right? And then it adds it here. And then you would click on save changes. All right, by numbers, this is how you add new numbers to your account. You have the option for local and toll-free. We're going to start here with toll-free. Choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with, and then click on search. And the system will provide you a list of phone numbers. Right, you can scroll down to look for more. Click on add for any numbers you like. Now, just because you add it to your cart, you haven't reserved that number. Right? It's still technically someone else can grab it before you if you don't finish the process quickly enough. Right? To finish the process, you click on buy numbers. So now the system's verifying that the number was truly available still, and then adding it to your account. Now at this point, you have the number. Right? You would still want to click save changes so it's added to this user. Otherwise, it'll just go to your spare numbers. Right? Local, you need to know the area code that you want to work with. So any area code, including the toll-free prefixes, you can get this message, right? And this is just saying that there's no readily available phone numbers within that particular area code. My suggestion is go to your favorite search engine, type in this case, area code 310 overlay. Hopefully you'll get a response back letting you know that there's an additional area code that covers the same geographic area. In this case, that's 424. You would click search, and you'd see that there are some 424 numbers that you can add. Same process, systems verifying that it's truly available, and then here it is. You have a little gear icon here to the far right of each phone number. It's a menu. First up is caller ID. So you can add text to the outbound caller ID, so the CNAME, for that phone number. This is what we would associate when you make an outbound call, right? We send the phone number and then whatever text. You can add up to 15 characters. It will count spaces as part of that 15. That's part of the industry standard. Once you click on Save Changes, that information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support this feature. It takes them about 3 business days to get that all situated. Then down here, you have the option to accept inbound CNAME, right? So that means if someone has presented their name, it will show up on your staff member's phone. Something to keep in mind about CNAME, right? We can only control what we send out, right? The receiving, so it's always possible that a carrier between us and whoever you're calling may not support CNAME, which means it would not reach the destination. Even that last carrier, right? The destination carrier, they have final say about what shows up on the phones on their network. So in an ideal world, they see the number and name that we're sending and they pass it through, right? Everybody's happy. The most common thing that happens is they pass the number through, but not the name. Right? This is the default actually for what the cell phone carriers do. The cell phone carriers, in fact, are the ones who put like telemarketer or spam risk as part of the caller ID name. There's rare situations where the receiving carrier passes the number through and then looks up the number under their own database and puts whatever information is there, which is not something we can really do much about, anything about. Next up, E911. You can set up an E911 address for each phone number. This then allows you to assign that phone number to your VoIP phone specifically for use for if they ever have to dial 911, right? So if Bob picks up his VoIP phone, dials 911, you can have the proper address for Bob sent to emergency services versus your corporate headquarters address. For our Canadian customers, zip code, that's where you would put your postal code. And then in state, that's where you would put your 2-character province abbreviation. Prepend is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to add text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. It gives them a heads up about what the call might be about. All right, next up we have devices, right? You can add from spare or new. First up is SIP device. Right, so this is that physical phone. Click on that. You have these manufacturers to choose from, right? Some have a lot of models. Some only have like half a dozen. So find the make and model of the phone you want to work with. Give it a name, right? Bob's phone, a warehouse phone, something so you know where it is or where it's supposed to be. And then the MAC address, typically a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, you can also check the status section or settings, and it should display there. Then you would click on Create Device, right? And then Save Changes. Then you'd come back and click on the device name here. Go to Advanced and select Miscellaneous. And where it says Allow Reprovision, click on Unlock. You'll get a little green message up here at the top right. Click on Save Changes, and then Save Changes again. So now you've told our system, hey, I'm going to provision this device. Then you need to get into that phone's web user interface, right? So you get the IP address of the phone, you put that into the address bar of your browser, and enter. You get to the auto provisioning section, you would enter a URL. For the specifics of that, you want to go down into the show notes, and there's a auto provisioning phones document. That's going to have screenshots for these various manufacturers. as well as the proper syntax for that URL. And in some cases, some additional settings for some of these manufacturers to make sure it's set up properly. All right. Next up, you have cell phone, and this also applies to landline. All right, you give it a name, and then here you put +1 area code and number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Click on Create Device, and then Save Changes. So if we go here, so this is what it looks like. If we go to the advanced options, this is the default settings for a new cell phone or landline on the account. So just so you know what to expect, call comes into the system, it reaches your cell phone, right? It starts to ring. When you pick up, you'll hear a message saying, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take the call. Right? Then connect you speak to the person. Let's say, for instance, you've actually contracted out with another company to handle your calls for after hours. They give you a phone number, say, hey, just send your after hours calls to this phone number, and we'll handle it. Typically, that's going to an automated answering service of some sort. That automated answering service doesn't know when to press 1, right? Which means your after hours calls wouldn't get through. That's going to be a problem. So what you would do is on your Dash account, right? You would add that number they gave you. Come here under advanced, and where it says allow cell phones voicemail or landlines voicemail, right? Click on the box in front of it. So now when we send a call to this phone number, there's no message about this is a forwarded call or pressing 1, right? Instead, it's we send the phone call to this phone number. When we hear a pickup tone, we connect the call, right? So your automated answering service is happy because they're able to connect the call and the customer is handled. Now, if you did this on your personal cell phone, that's fine. But what can happen is your personal cell phone's voicemail can pick up. That's still a pickup tone. So that inbound caller ends up on your personal cell phone's voicemail, right? Some people want that, some people don't. This other one sometimes changes is keep original caller ID. So customer Mary calls into the system, gets out to my cell phone. So on my cell phone, I see customer Mary's phone number. Now, if I don't recognize that number, I may let it go to voicemail, right? Because I've had way too many robo-dialers, telemarketers, etc. I'm like, nah, I don't really care. Which means I could miss out on some business. But what I could do is uncheck keep original caller ID, right? And then save changes. And what that means is when calls reach my cell phone, instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number, I go back to my dashboard, the number I selected as my main number up here, that's the number that shows up on my cell phone. So hopefully I would recognize my main company number and go, oh, this is a work call, let me pick it up. All right, next up, soft phone. So whenever you add a soft phone or web phone to the account, you're gonna get this warning message. Please make sure you read it at least once. And then click on close. And then you get this big box. So the system is defaulting you to using a third-party soft phone, right? So meaning you're using someone else's soft phone app, not ours, which is fine. In the first box, you would give it a name, whatever device you want to call it. Then the SIP username, right? You would copy and paste this. This is one of the 3 pieces of information you need. The SIP password, you would click on that SIP password box, copy and paste that. Please don't delete it or change it. And then here's the realm, right? Those are the 3 pieces of information you would need to program that other soft phone application. Then you would click on create device and then save changes. And then hopefully that device gets registered. If you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone app, down here below where it says view configuration file, there's some additional text that's kind of grayed out, but it says use third-party application. This is a toggle. So you can click on it. So now it says use VirtualPBX application. Give it a device name, click on create device, and then click on save changes. Once you click on that save changes, Dante, in this case, he would get an email saying that his VirtualPBX soft phone is ready. It will present him with his login information for that app, as well as uh, download links to use the app on his preferred device. Web phone, you get that same warning message. You just need to give it a name, click on create device, and then save changes. And then that's the one that uses your dash login information to log in on Chrome or Firefox. Right, user features. You've got many user features to work with here. First up, caller ID number. This is for people who've got assigned phone numbers to them. All right, so up here you would turn it on, and this allows you to select the phone number that you want them to use for their outbound caller ID. All right, so that way whenever they make an outbound call with a VoIP phone, that's the whatever number you select here, that's the number that shows up on their outbound caller ID instead of the main number. Voicemail box. This is the default settings for that voicemail box you added with the user. Voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and cannot accept any more. By default, there's 3 ways to listen to messages, but 2 ways to manage your voicemail box. The first way to listen to your messages is because of this one here, attached messages to email. Right, so when you get a voicemail, you get an email notification. Yeah, in the body of the email, it's going to be the date, the time, the phone numbers involved, and the voicemail box number it went to. Right, then there'll be an MP3 attachment that you can click on and listen to directly on your computer, for example. The other ways to listen to or manage your voicemail box or voicemail messages, right, are basically calling in. First message, if you have a VoIP phone, right, just hit *98. That logs you directly into your voicemail box. You can listen to the messages, you can manage it, right? From a cell phone, you can call into your main number that goes to a virtual receptionist. And when you hear that main greeting play, hit *97. Then it will ask you for your voicemail box number and PIN number you listen to over the phone. The third way, or the last way, I guess I should say, is via the user portal. Right? Everyone has access to their user portal, and that defaults to your voicemail tab. So you can listen to the messages, you can delete them there as well. Follow me. This is good for users with multiple devices. Now, if I left this disabled, right, I have 3 devices here. So that means when calls come to my user, all 3 of my devices ring. Right? Follow me allows the system admin to change that up. So when I click enable, first up, this devices all start off as do not ring, right? So not ringing anything. But I can uncheck that and choose devices I want that to be enabled, right? And then I click and drag these bars to give them a ring time. Up here, these are timestamps, right? I can adjust the total ring time. Right now it's at 120 seconds. I can change that down to 90. Right? Then I can click distribute. So now it equalizes out between my soft phone and my web phone. I can click and drag and change the order. Right? Now let's say, oh, I'm actually going to be making use of my cell phone because I'm going to be remote part of the day, but not the whole day. So then I can uncheck the do not ring, click distribute. So now it's my 3rd device. Right now, if I wasn't a system admin, I would have to tell my admin about that so they could make that adjustment for me. And then you would click on Save Changes. Fax box. This allows you to have a user have their own fax box. Right, so you click to enable. Then you have the option to buy a new number, use a spare number, or add a new extension. I recommend making use of a phone number that gives your staff member the capability of both sending and receiving faxes. Selecting an extension number saves you the potential cost of adding a phone number. However, you limit your user, right? In fact, if you have an extension number, that for the fax box, the user will not be able to send a fax out. The system will try to use that extension number as the outbound caller ID, and it will fail. You also potentially limit who can send them a fax, right? Because not all fax services allows for faxing to an extension. They just want you to put a phone number in and click send. Conference bridge appears when you enable it. That means this user is moderating conferences or can moderate conferences. Here, you would enter a PIN number for that person. They can change that under their user portal. Enable video conferencing, that's for in-house use, right? So people on your account who are using their VoIP phones could make use of video conferencing. Anyone outside of that would, or using like a cell phone, would not be able to. Call forwarding, you have off, on, or failover mode. Your staff members can turn call forwarding off or on their own. Failover mode is for specifically for VoIP phone users, right? But in general, it's for VoIP phone users. But what you would do is here, you enter +1 area code and number, right? That's where you're forwarding calls to. So failover mode is the VoIP phone like their default VoIP phone becomes unregistered for whatever reasons. Call comes in the user at that time, the system will automatically forward to the number you designated here, right? The +1 area code or number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Click on Save Changes. Now, my user already has a cell phone as part of my device mix, right? And I left Follow Me disabled. So there's no point in enabling call forwarding on my user because I'm already forwarding to a cell phone as part of my device mix. Customize call recording. When you first enable it, it looks like this, which means you're not actually recording any calls, right? You need to tell the system what kind of calls you want to record, right? Inbound internal, right, means coworker Dante called me. Do I want to record that or do I not want to? Inbound external, right, customer Mary called me. Probably going to record that. Outbound internal, right, I called coworker Dante. And then outbound external, I called customer Mary, right? So we often see the external ones recorded or all four. And then you would click on Save Changes. So your account includes some level of data storage as part of your monthly price. Check the pricing page. It should be listed there if you just signed up with us, or you can contact our services team. If you have heavy call volume and you need to record every call, we do recommend AWS storage, right? So AWS storage or integration on your account with us means you can link your Dash account with an AWS account of your own, and then you would store the data with AWS. Right? This is also what we recommend for insurance customers or customers who are insurance agents. Music on hold. You can choose to have users have their own hold music if you want to. Right? You would click to enable, upload to find, and then browse to find the MP3 or WAV file you want to use, up arrow icon, and then save changes. For instance, if you want your salespeople to have a hold music that talks about, special promotions that are going on, that would make sense, whereas the rest of your staff doesn't need that. Do not disturb, turn it on so you're not receiving the user isn't receiving calls. Disable it so that way they can get calls. Hot desking, this is a VoIP phone feature designed for a shared office environment or hybrid scheduling, right? What this does is allows users to log into a VoIP phone that they're sitting at to get calls at that VoIP phone, right? So up here, you would click to enable. You enter hot desk ID. If you're making use of 4-digit extensions, just make their hot desk ID their extension number. Up to you if we want to require a PIN number, and then save changes. So, right, I come into the office on Tuesday. I sit down at desk number 2. I pick up the VoIP phone there. I hit *11 on the phone, click send. That turns on hot desking. The system's going to ask me for my hot desk ID. I enter that. It then tells me that calls will now be sent to this device, right? So the rest of my workday, while I'm sitting at desk number 2, anyone who's trying to reach my user, it rings at the phone I'm sitting at. End of my workday, I pick up the phone, I hit *12 and click send, right? And then enter my hot desk ID. That turns off hot desking. The next time I come into the office, let's say that's a Friday, I sit down at desk number 5. Same process, right? Pick up the phone, *11, click send, enter hot desk ID. Now calls are coming to me at desk number 5. All right, next up we have groups, right? Ring groups or departments, sometimes called hunt groups as well. Up here at the top is where you would create a group. You need to give it a name and give it an extension number, right? So that's where you put the name, that's where you put the extension number, and then you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group. Click on create group. Once a group is created, you can click on the name, right? So you can always change the name at any time. The group call attempts, the little arrows here, so you can increase or decrease that. This is how many times the system offers calls to the members of the group. All right. You can also delete a group if you no longer need it. Otherwise, click on Save Changes. Then we've got the members box. This shows your staff members that you've assigned to the group and how you're offering calls to them. So, oops, you can do something like this. Right, this is called blast ringing or ring all. Right, offering the call to everybody at the same time for the same amount of time. Whoever picks up first gets the call. Now, in an office environment, this works out pretty well because your staff members know who picked up the call, right? They can hear each other probably. So they know, oh, you know, Taylor and David pick up at the same time. Taylor keeps talking and David's going, hello, hello. And then he hears Taylor. He knows, oh, okay, Taylor got the call. Not a big deal. In a remote working situation, you probably need some sort of communication platform to make sure that the call did, you know, get connected versus you have a problem with, or your user has a problem with their devices or the group in some fashion. Now, up here at the top, you got timestamps, right? Defaults to 120 seconds. You can change that. You can click distribute. So now I'm offering calls in this order every time, right? So call comes in, David picks up. He's talking to the customer. Second call calls in, David still gets offered that call first, right? In this case for 40 seconds. And then it gets down to Dante, right? So now there's 2 calls, right? David and Dante handle calls. Third call comes in. That third caller is waiting 80 seconds before it's offered to Taylor, right? So that's why you might want to click and drag these sliders for these later people so that any additional callers are not waiting on hold too long. Some things to keep in mind about calls from groups. Right, so calls from a group to a user, ignore the follow me settings. Right, so if on my user, for instance, right, if I had enabled follow me calling and set up, you know, to ring only on my soft phone and web phone, calls from the group ignore the order of that. They would just ring all of my devices on my user. Now, except for the D&D toggle, right? As a user, I have no way to get myself out of the group. Right? I can't mark myself away other than D&D. I can't log out of the group. Only a system admin can change the order of the calling, etc. If groups don't work out for you, you'd want to talk to our services team about the call center, right? ACD queues. You have more advanced routing options, right? You can think like round robin, most idle, that sort of thing. Your staff members can log themselves in and out of a queue, as well as mark themselves away, like when they go to lunch, etc. So yeah, queues are basically an advanced version of groups. Extension box, right? Groups can have multiple extension numbers. They can have their own phone number. Just like under users, if you add a phone number to a group, it's available 24/7. But beyond that, it's the same process. Group features, First up is ring back. So when a call comes into a group, right, goes to your staff members, their phones start to ring. That ringing sound then is piped back to your inbound caller, right? That's the ring back. If you don't want that, instead you want some sort of media file to play, then you would enable this file, upload a .wav or .mp3 file. The main thing to keep in mind here is that the system will not loop the file for you. So you want to make sure that the file you upload is or plays as long as your ring time, right? So if 2-minute ring time, you want to make sure this media file plays for at least 2 minutes. Next action, basically what you're saying is if none of my staff is able to pick up, what do I want my system to do with that caller? So you click here, enable, and then here on this pull down are other places on your account, right? Other groups, you can send it to a user, a device, or a voicemail box, which is the most commonly chosen. And then you would click on Save Changes. Call forwarding, click here to allow, click on Save Changes. That means your staff members can make use of call forwarding. And then caller ID prepend, this is for your VoIP phone users. You can add either additional text or numbers that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones in front of the caller ID. Right, the idea here is you're giving your staff members a heads up about what the call might be about before they pick up. All right, so now that we've got users with devices and groups added to the account, now we can go over here to the main number. So first up, you have the main number, your main company numbers, right? You can add from spare, buy new. You've got the gear icon to edit the E911 or caller ID information. Then you have your office hour strategy. By default, new accounts are set up as 24-hour open office, but you can always choose to go to custom office hours. If you do so for each day of the week that you're open, put a check mark in front of the days that you're open, and then set your open hours in 24-hour or military time. Down here towards the bottom, you also have the option to be closed for lunch at the same time every day that you're open. You just put a check mark here and then enter your lunch hours again in that 24-hour or military time. And then you would click on Save Changes. Office holidays, click check mark here if you want to be closed for holidays. Over here on the right, click on Add Holiday. You have single day, date range, and advance. Each one of these creates a new row for you. Right, so give it a name, choose the month and the date for single day, right? Then save changes. For date range, you give it a name, start date, and then end date. Save changes. Advance, I have like here for Memorial Day, I gave it a name, I chose the month. This second pull down, you choose 1st through 5th or last, and then the day of the week, and then save changes. If you need to get rid of a holiday, you click on the trash icon and click on Save Changes. Incoming call handling. So for my main numbers, right? So for my 4 main numbers, how do I want my system to handle calls during my open hours? Here's my after hours tab, and then my holidays tab. And the same basic options, right? So open hours, I have calls coming here, going to my virtual receptionist, which is a link. Opens up a big box. On the left is my main menu, right? So this is what people press on their phone to navigate through my system. I click on add route to give myself a new row. This first pull down, you have 0 through 9, the star key, and the default action. Right? The second pull down are things on your account that you've already created, right? So users, groups, specific devices, voicemail boxes, etc. Over here on the right, your greeting options. First up is text to speech. This allows you to enter text in the box provided below. You can enter up to 250 characters. The system doesn't count spaces, so you have a little leeway there. And it reads it back in a computerized or robotic voice. There's no charge for text-to-speech greetings. However, the system names them for you. So this is my open hours. The system is going to name this file main open hours menu TTS. So it's very easy to have many files with the same name that end in TTS. This I typically recommend if you're just starting out, either with us or just in general. Right? You're not yet sure how you want calls to flow. That's fine, especially since there's no charge for this. But what I would recommend is after you create one, right, you would click on update, then save at the bottom, and then save changes. Over on the left, there's a greetings tab, which we'll be getting to shortly. Use that tab, find main open hours menu TS, and change the file just to something that you can easily recognize, right? Like main greeting beta, right, etc. You could upload your own file, right? .wav, .mp3 file. Click on choose file, find a file on your device. Oops. Click update, save, and save changes. Choose from an already existing file. This pull down will show all your media files on the account, right? Voicemail greetings, main greetings, ringback files. But then find the file, click on update, save, and save changes. You can record it over the phone. Now, when the system says pick up a phone registered to this account, that means a VoIP phone, right? That's a security setting, basically saying, hey, it's a phone that we know is associated with this account, so it's safer to make a change to the main greeting. If that doesn't work for you for whatever reasons, then under settings, where it says allow outside recording, make sure it's on. Right? By default, it's off, right? Because it's a security feature, but you can turn it on. This allows you to call in from your cell phone or a landline, right? You'll hear a greeting play when you first call in. You enter in your PIN number, right? This PIN number is specific to this time of day on this account. And then the system will guide you through recording it over the phone. Now, if I try to call in on Saturday and use this PIN number, I'd get a rejection message because on Saturdays, my system is closed. Now, when you record over the phone, you're overwriting the existing main greeting that's playing, right? So for a holiday, you might want to be aware of that because you may lose your main greeting that you have for most of the year. Professional recording services. If you click on order, this will open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings. It's a separate company. They have many voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have their own pricing packages, which you can evaluate. They bill you via credit card, and then they send you the completed file, via email, right? So then you can come back here and just upload your own file. All right, settings, number of retries on misdial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. I usually recommend anywhere from 1 to 3. Much more seems excessive. All right, so your inbound callers have one built-in attempt, right? So this is whatever number you enter here is addition to that base 1, right? So in this case, even though I have 1 here, my caller has 2 total attempts. Dialing timeout. This is how much time the system listens for additional button presses, right? So i.e. someone's trying to enter an extension number. The system is giving them time to enter multiple digits. Anywhere from 3 to 5 is typically plenty of time here. Already covered allow outside recording. Allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on, and this means that if your inbound caller enters a valid extension number, the system will transfer the call. If I turn this off, my inbound caller can only press the menu options. All right, if they enter an extension number, the system will tell them that's an invalid entry. And then here is the option to suppress the playing of the invalid entry, right? So what can happen is, right, caller calls in, keeps making a mistake. Finally, at the end, the system would say, we did not recognize your entry. If you have a default action, the system will transfer the call. If you don't, the system would say goodbye, right? So in that first scenario where you have a default action, you may not want that message to play, where it's like, we did not recognize your entry, transferring your call. So if you want to suppress that message in that instance, you would turn this on and then click on save and save changes. Right, so any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, your settings, you would click save here at the bottom. It takes you back to your incoming call handling. You would click on save changes here. All right, so for my after hours, I'm choosing the second option. This is the live operator answer option, meaning I'm offering calls first to somebody, in this case, my support group, giving them a chance to answer the call first. If they're not able to pick up, then the caller is sent to my virtual receptionist. This is my after hours receptionist, so I likely have a different greeting playing, different menu options. For holidays, I've chosen this third option here where calls come in and I'm telling it to skip directly to voicemail and directing them to a specific voicemail box. Now, this first pull down, I can select it going to a user, a group, etc. Basically, whoever is my holiday on call person, right? I could say, hey, offer to call them first. And then in the second pull down, I can choose a specific voicemail box, right? So I could say, send it to my on-call person's voicemail box or the general, main voicemail box, etc. Main conference number, you can have multiple conference room numbers if you want. They're just going to the same location, so it doesn't really matter. You can also have a custom text-to-speech conference greeting. You would just click to enable and then type in what you want the system to say. Even if I left this disabled, when you call into the conference number, the system says welcome to the conference and then asks you to enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. Main fax box number, you don't have the one, which is why I don't have the option to add more, but I do have a fax box I can edit now. First up, I have the inbound notification email address, right? In the box to the right, I enter an email address here. This email gets notified every time a fax comes in, right? So they'll have an email with the date, the time, phone numbers involved, and then a PDF attachment. Now, if someone dials my fax box number and hangs up, right, this person still gets an email, right? We'll have the date and time, etc., but there'll be the message heading will say, a failed inbound fax attempt. If the caller ID for the phone number says wireless number, right, that tells you someone hung up, right? As far as I know, cell phones don't send faxes. But just something to be aware of that this person could extra emails that are saying they're failed. Now, if it's a phone number you're expecting a fax from, you'd want to contact that other party and let them know it didn't get through. Next up, we have the email permissions box. To the right here, this is designed to put your company email domain, or you can just put in a single email address. All right, but this allows for outbound faxing. So anyone at VirtualPBX can send a fax out on this account, even if they're not a user on the account. Right, they just need that proper format, that +1 area code and number. They would need to know the account realm and then attach a PDF or TIFF file. All right, auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature. Auto attendance allows you to create additional auto attendants. You would use this for submenuing, right? So like 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. You would create an English and Spanish auto attendant, or you have separate businesses, right? You have multiple businesses. They have their own numbers and their own main greetings. Up here at the top, you would click on Add Auto Attendant, give it a name, give it an extension number, click on create attendant. Once it's created, if you click on the name, it defaults to be unavailable in main menu, right? Meaning it defaults to being a standalone attendant. To toggle though, you can click it. Once you click it to be available in main menu and click on save changes, now it becomes a menu option, right? So under your virtual receptionist, it can be one of your options, menu options. It can also be a next action option from your groups. Auto attendants can have their own phone numbers, right? So add from spare or buy new, right? Which would make sense if they're a separate business. Extension number, they can have multiple extension numbers if you want. This is not something your customers would ever necessarily make use of, but your staff would transfer to an auto attendant. Like for instance, if a Spanish speaker came into me, I would have to, say something like no sé, and then try to transfer them to my Spanish auto attendant, so that way my Spanish speaking coworkers could handle the call. Uh, Under settings, there's a little wrench icon here. All right, you have open hours, after hours, and holidays, right? This matches what we set up under main number. In all cases, though, you only have the option to set it to the virtual receptionist, where you would set up menu options, greetings, and settings, save, and then save changes. The devices tab shows your devices on the account. A red device means it's unregistered, so we can't send calls to it. If it's a soft phone, it could be someone's not logged into it, or for a physical device, it's not plugged in or what have you. Green device means we can send calls to it, right? So like this particular Dante GV device, right? We can send calls to that. Black means it's disabled on the account. And if you look over here to the right, under enabled, you can tell it's off, right? That's my unregistered device from the dashboard. The wrench icon here under edit. For your physical devices under audio, right, under the selected codecs, you typically want to see G711U and G711A over here on the right. That means you might have to click and drag to get the right codecs over. Emergency caller ID, right? This is where you would set up the E911 address associated with a particular phone number. So that way, whenever someone picks up this particular phone and dials 911, this is the address that gets transmitted to emergency services. Oh, one thing to point out, you can add devices here, right? Soft phone, you still get that warning message, but when you click close on that warning message, you don't have that toggle below the view configuration guide. So if you're adding a soft phone here on the devices tab, you're only adding a third-party device. Right? If you want to add a VirtualPBX soft phone, you have to do it directly to the user. Right, greetings tab included on the account. This lets you see your various media files. Right, name, it's whatever it was named. Then you have the source, right? So TTS, right, text to speech. Upload means the file was uploaded. Recording means it was recorded over the phone. You can always click on the little play icon here to listen to the file directly on your browser. If for some reason that doesn't work, you can click on the download here, right? So download it to your device and play it back on your computer or device's media player. I also recommend this for your main greetings, so that way you have a backup of it locally, right? You're not just relying on storing it here. And then edit, little wrench icon. So here is where you would change the name of the file. And this is where you would use to get rid of any media files you no longer need. Next up, we have numbers, which starts you off on your numbers in use. This just shows you where your numbers are assigned. You got the gear icon, so you can update the caller ID, E911, or PPEND. The spare number tab shows your numbers that you're not currently using. This is where you would go if you want to delete a number. So for instance, I could click on these bottom two numbers. And now I have the option to delete up here. And hit click on continue. And now I have two less phone numbers. Right, by numbers, local, toll free, Same process. It just adds them as spare numbers so I can use them later. Port starts a new porting process. You would give it a name, choose local or toll-free, click next. Now the system wants you to upload a copy of your bill dated within the last 30 days. Then it'll ask you to fill out a form, which basically you should match what your current carrier has on file for you in terms of the account name, the address, etc. It'll ask for a BTN or billing telephone number. If you're only porting one number, you can use the number you're porting as a BTN. If you're porting multiple, you may need to contact your current carrier for that. There's an option to enter a PIN number. This is typically needed to port out a mobile phone number to us. Some of the VoIP carriers require it, as well as some Canadian carriers. For the cell phone carriers, well, in all cases, it's a security feature, but it originated with the cell phone carriers because if you port a phone number away from a cell phone, right, that cell phone stops working as a phone until it gets a new number assigned. So that's why that was instituted. So especially if you're porting a mobile phone number over to us, you're going to want to talk to your carrier to find out what their port out PIN number is. Then you'll be given the opportunity to download a blank LOA or letter of agency, as well as upload a completed and signed LOA. Again, that LOA asks you for your company name, your address. It does need a signature, right? You can use a digital signature file, that's fine, or you can print it out and sign it and scan it back in. Please don't just print your name twice or type it in twice. Anytime we try to submit that, it gets rejected, and they don't have to reply right away. They can sit on it for a couple days before they give us a reply. Toll-free numbers, if everything is correct, typically take 3 to 5 business days. A local number, it varies quite widely. It averages about 2 to 3 weeks if everything is correct, but I have seen them get completed by the next business day if we get it in early enough. If there's a problem, right, we get a rejection, we double check to make sure there wasn't a typo anywhere that we may have made. Or in the case of like an address error, we double check to see if there's multiple addresses we could try. Right, like if you gave us a billing address and a service, like a billing address and a service address, we would try them both if we got an error before we'd let you know, hey, we got an address error, we tried these. You're gonna have to contact the carrier to find out what the correct information is. Voicemail boxes shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. Any voicemail box that has an entry under the user tab was a voicemail box that was created with the user. Up here at the top, you can click on add new voicemail box, give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number, right? And then click on create voicemail box. One thing to know is a voicemail box number is not the same as an extension number, right? So if someone entered 333 right from my virtual receptionist, they're not getting to this voicemail box. In fact, they get an invalid entry. Now, the voicemail box number and PIN number is what you would use to listen to messages over the phone or even change the greeting for the voicemail box. Now, for any voicemail box you create on this page, after you create it, you're going to want to go to greeting media and either upload a file, right, .wav.mp3, or choose from an existing file on the account. And you typically want to assign it to the media field here. Right, the temporary, that's for your out of office or vacation message. So if you have something selected under temporary, it plays, right? And the media file does not. The media file will not play again until you send temporary back to none. Recipients, your voicemail boxes that you created for the users have a built-in recipient, and that email address used for login. Any voicemail box you create on this page, you would want to add at least one recipient. So you would click here and add new recipient and enter an email address, right? Keep clicking add until you're done adding people. And then once you're done, click on save changes. And then options. So once a voicemail box has a greeting media and a recipient. You can click on already set up, so that way the media file won't get changed on you. And then you'd want to double check that the attached email, voicemails to email is enabled. Now here's an option to delete after that notification. So this is my support voicemail box. I don't want this voicemail box to ever get full because that would probably unnerve my customers. So in this instance, I put this check mark here for delete after notification. What that means, after someone leaves a voicemail, right, the email gets generated, gets sent out, the system then goes back through and removes that voicemail message from the voicemail box, right? So the voicemail box never becomes full. I just need to make sure my staff members are getting their voicemail or their emails, because if they don't, then I might be losing those voicemail messages. Virtual text forward. This is that add-on feature where you can allow a phone number to receive inbound text messages and forward them on. Right? It's not for two-way communication. Up here at the top, you would click on add number, choose a phone number on the account, and then choose to enter either an email address where you want that text message to go, or a webhook. Right? So webhook would be a plan-specific feature, but basically allows you to link your Dash account to other software. All right, then you click on create text forward. And you see here, so these phone numbers, whenever they receive a text message, these email addresses get a message saying, hey, you have a new text message, here's what it was, and then they can act on it accordingly. Virtual extensions, this is a plan-specific feature. I don't believe it's an add-on, so you might need to talk to our account services team about this. Up here at the top, you click on add extension, you give it a name, you give it an extension number, you click on create extension. Then you click on devices to add a device. Now, here you can only add a third-party soft phone, right? Because there's no email address associated with a virtual extension, so we can't send them the credentials for the VirtualPBX soft phone, right? But beyond that, you can add a SIP phone, cell phone, landline, etc. Right? And then the virtual extensions, they become an option off of the virtual receptionist, right? They can be a menu option, or someone can enter extension 1007 and be directed to whatever device is on this user or this virtual extension, excuse me. Call logs shows your call history. Right? You have today, this week, this month, and custom. Custom, you can change the date range so you can go back further in time. The system will let you go back up to 12 months. If you need to go further than that, you need to contact our support team. We can create an escalation. Generally speaking, our engineers can go back up to 18 months, and after that, the data is not available. The green arrow to the right, that's a call coming into the system, right? So here's a call coming in, and then here's a call going out from the system to the device on the user. Right? Originated cancel tells me that the inbound caller hung up before the person my staff member could actually answer. Yellow arrow to the left, that's an outbound call from the system. You have a little fire hydrant icon here. This reports the call, right? So it creates an email for you, pre-addressed to support@virtualpbx.com. It's going to have the technical details of the call. You're going to want to enter in context, right? Because sometimes from the technical details, we're not going to know exactly why you're sending the call to us. Specifically, if you had like an audio issue, we're not going to know from the technical details. Right? Each one of these timestamps you can download. It's just going to download it as a CSV file. So if you need your call logs for any kind of compliance reasons, I'd recommend do it every month. That way you can just, hey, it's, February 2024 call log, right? That way you know exactly what it is. Feature codes, I've talked about a couple of these. These are ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phone. This is obviously a page here for admins to view. If you go in the show notes, there's a link there for the support help center. So you can do a search for feature codes or the phone commands cheat sheet. So it will have these, as well as the phone command cheat sheet also has the context help. So then potentially a little bit more useful. All right, so that's the dashboard. Next up, we have blacklists. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your staff. Click Edit Blacklist over here on the top right. Click Add to create a new list, or just click on an existing list. Right, give it a name, and then choose first, are you blocking anonymous calls or not? Right, anonymous call just means the call that's coming in is not presenting caller ID. By default, this is off, meaning they get through. Right, if I turn it on, they don't get through. Beyond that, I have a list of phone numbers. I click on Add Number, +1 area code of phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Keep clicking Add until you're done, and then click on Save. Go back to Settings up here at the top right. Make sure your list is on the right-hand side under Selected, right? So you might have to click and drag, and then click Update. So now any phone numbers that are on these lists, they will reach your system, right? They'll show up in the call log, but then they get busy tone, right? They're not getting through to any of your staff members to ring on your staff members' phones. Call recording. This does one of two things. In this case, this account is linked to AWS, so it's taking me to that interface here so I can see my call recordings. I can change the date range to see, go through different times. I can also change if I just want all the recordings, inbound calls or outbound. I can play back the recordings over here on the right. I can download them to my computer. If I'm not using AWS, this would instead open up a new tab, take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com, which will ask you for your dash login information, but then you could see your call recordings there, pay them back or delete them, etc. A monitor plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members or their devices. Right, you can switch between all available and who's busy. Doesn't matter what devices they're using. Over here on the left, active inbound calls. Each active inbound call would have its own little blue box and show you who among your staff they're speaking to. Parked calls, if there's any parked calls here, you would see their phone number as well as their parking spot number. Reports, this is a plan-specific feature. Actually, it's also an add-on feature. This allows you to create your own custom reports. This link would open up a new tab, take you to reports.virtualpbx.com. In the show notes, click on the advanced reporting demo to see what you can do with those, or at least get an idea. Voicemails, this is an included feature. This lets you get to any voicemail box on the account, i.e. if you're getting reports that a voicemail box is full, you can get to that voicemail box. You can see the information about a particular message. You can play it back. You can download it. If you put a little check mark in front of the message, as an admin, you can move a voicemail message to a different voicemail box, as well as change its status. Integration AWS plan-specific feature. Right, this allows you to link your Dash account to other software, and in fact, the access key, secret access key, and bucket are the information we would need from AWS for you to link it to your Dash account. If you're interested in this, you definitely want to speak to our services team. Call center. This opens up a new tab, takes you to callcenter.virtualpbx.com. Uses your Dash login to log in. This is where your admins or your users would access the call queues. If you look in the show notes, look at the ACD Queues Pro demo. Queues are an advanced version of groups, right? You have the different call routing options, like most idle, round robin. The queues also allow managers to eavesdrop in on a call, right? Whisper to your agent to help them out, right? Pointers, or barge in if a call is getting out of control. Dynamic caller ID, plan-specific feature. I don't believe it's an add-on feature, but I could be wrong on that. But this allows you to create rules to change your outbound caller ID for your VoIP phone users. So you would click on create new rule to create a new one. I'm just going to click edit on this existing one here. So I named it Vegas. I chose a 702 number. And basically what I just said is whenever my staff members dial a 702 area code phone number, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to the 702 number I selected, right? So it looks like a local call. All right, the other rule type here is I created a feature code. So now my staff members need to dial star 951, then the area code and phone number they're reaching out to. When they do that, the system will recognize that and change their outbound caller ID to this 916 number I added. Faxes is an included feature. This lets you get to any fax box on the account. So here's my inbound faxes, so I can see, right, the date and time that it came in, phone number it came from, number of pages, I can download the file, etc. I can get to the outbound fax tab. Again, choose the fax box. So here I see my successful faxes and a failure. If you see a failure here, that means we had a problem with that other phone number. All right, in this case, I mouse over, it says timed out waiting for initial communication. So that means it's a valid phone number, but we didn't hear fax tones, right? So it wasn't able to complete the fax. But beyond that, you have got the date, the time, phone numbers involved, number of pages if successful. The email to fax logs, if you see an entry here, that means the system had a problem processing the request for some reason. That's why the little thumbs down icon. You're going to want to go over here to the far right and click on the eyeball icon. And you see in this case, there was no valid attachments. Maybe the person forgot to attach a file. Maybe they just chose something that wasn't a PDF or TIFF file. Number manager, this will take you back to your spare number page. We're going to skip down here to SMS registration. So if you want to use texting on your account, you are going to need to go through the SMS registration process. If you just signed up with us, you definitely want to talk to our account services team, as they will go over this with you, as well as what to expect. But once you've submitted it, you'll go to the registration status to see where you are in the process. Webhooks, plan-specific feature. This allows you to link your Dash account to other software. In the show notes, you can look at the Introduction to Zapier webinar to give you an idea of what can be done. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we've done to link other software, like the Slack, for instance, right? When you click on new webhook, you basically fill out the form, click on create webhook, and then you need something on the other end to link it to. You'd actually want to talk to our sales team, as they have more information about this as well. And then lastly, the user portal. Every user has access to their own user portal. It will default you to your voicemail tab, right? So over here to the far right, you can play it back, you can download it, and then as a user, you can change its status. The call history tab, the user can go back and view their particular call history. They can choose a different date range and click filter to see the calls that they've made or received. The fax tab is only used for users that have their own fax box, but they would see their fax history. The contact list is everything within your Dash account, right? Feature codes, auto attendance, users, groups, right? So your staff would use this to transfer calls, basically, or look up a feature code. They're not going to be able to add to this themselves unless they're an admin, but then it shows up for everybody. The conference tab, only useful for users that you've enabled the conference feature on. On the far right is where you would update or where the user could update their conference PIN numbers, right? They want to make sure the participant PIN number and the moderator PIN number are different. Also on the right is where they can choose to have users or participants join muted or deafened, as well as entry and exit tones. I'm not quite sure why this isn't loading. Also, while in a conference, there'll be like a little plus icon. That means that allows your staff, whoever's the moderator, can invite other Dash users to the conference. They can then mute everybody, also unmute everybody, or end the conference call. Also, while on the page, your staff, each person in the conference has their own little blue box, so the moderator can mute a specific person or even kick out a specific person if necessary. Settings and devices. right here is where your staff members can enable call forwarding on their own. They just put a check mark here. They put +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses, and click on save. So now they're call forwarding, right? Uncheck it, save. Now I'm not call forwarding. And that is everything. I haven't seen any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream today. I thank you for your time, and I hope